Look at that leaf. Hold on, let me look at it. Yes, but it is a beautiful plant. It makes me wonder, what exactly did I struggle with? It's growing so well. And I've realized that 3 of my top 5 most watched videos are about Hoya. So there's a big chance that a lot of you are Hoya lovers. If you are, give me a thumbs up in the comment section so I know you're here. So because of that, I've decided that maybe every month or every other month, I'm going to release a Hoya favorites video. So I'm going to try to choose about 4 or 5 Hoya from my collection that are really standing out for the month. I want this to be genuine. So if there are none, then I'm not going to post a video. But that's what today's video is going to be about. If you're new, hello, my name is Stephanie. I love talking about my houseplant collection and how I care for them on a budget. If that's something you think you might enjoy, subscribe, stick around. I think I have 4 Hoya for sure that I want to talk about. One more that I'm thinking about. The fastest grower of the 5 that I'm going to share with you. I guess I'm still creating a little bit of a category here, but yes, of the 5, this one's my fastest grower. The first one on the list is my Hoya AH074. It tends to have this unique look about the leaves where, first of all, they're shaped like tacos. That's the best way I can describe it. And also, a lot of the leaves typically have a bright or minty look to them with an inner splashing of green. Sometimes the leaves can be almost the opposites, where you have green leaves with a little bit of the minty splashing around it. This plant is really fast growing, like I mentioned. It's shocking how fast growing it is. I've had it, I think January. So last month was 1 year since I've had this plant. I got this plant as a 3-leafed cutting. I think it was 3 leaves. And was it rooted? No, it actually wasn't rooted. I had to put it in pon myself. So I started it in pon and I've grown it from there. So I've had it for about a year. It's on this metal DIY trellis and I just wrap it around constantly around the trellis. Just to give you a little bit about the medium, it's currently growing in a mixture of pon, a little bit of leca. It's growing in semi-hydro in sort of a mixture of pon, leca, and that's what's in here in a self-watering pot. This plant is extremely resilient, very easygoing. I do not have a memory of losing a leaf on this in terms of a mature leaf yellowing and falling off. I do not have a memory. If it's unhappy, it will typically just grow very slowly and do nothing and not push out a new leaf. But this plant is super resilient. The con about it is that it is very dependent on genetics and light for the splashing. If for any reason you didn't have a lot of light, this will very easily revert on you. I think it's easy to get back the splashing, but I'm thinking of some others who may have not had that experience. But for me, all I do is just put it into a brighter light, put it into brighter conditions, and the variegation or the splashing, I keep saying variegation, the splashing will come back. But apart from that, it's a really nice plant and a really easygoing Hoya. So far, not many of my Hoya have bloomed for me. Only my Bella, which is a very easy Hoya to bloom, has bloomed for me. But recently I went on a trip and I came back to find 3 peduncles on this plant. So let's see if I can find them again. They were actually very hard to find and they're very small. This is the first time I've ever had peduncles on this plant. So that's it here. So right here, I hope you can see it. So it's really, really tiny. The odds of it actually coming to fruition and putting out blooms, I'm not going to hold my breath, but there's a chance. So that was 1, and number 2 is in here. There we go. So number 2 is right by my fingers here. There are 2 mini peduncles here, right here. See that tiny one? This plant is super easygoing, but it's on this list this month because it is one of my first Hoya, I would say, to give me peduncles. The others maybe came with peduncles and bloom off of those peduncles or was a Bella. So I have not had I've only had 2 Hoya bloom in my care. I'm very proud of it because I know Bellas are easy to bloom, but this one I haven't seen many people talk about the blooms on an AH074. So hopefully it will actually produce some flowers. If it does, I will share some pictures with you maybe in a month or so because they're still extremely small. I have heard that Hoya like warmth for blooms. I don't know if this is for sure yet. I haven't confirmed this, but also they need to be, a lot of them would need to be a little bit more mature to have blooms or produce peduncles. I know that there are baby Hoya, especially Bellas, they, even if they're quite small, they still push peduncles, but I know for a lot of others, when I've seen Hoya blooming, a lot of times they're on more mature plants. So I'm not surprised, but I'm also excited, and it lives behind me in this cabinet. It actually used to live up until yesterday right here where light from the south facing window, this is a grow light here by the way, but in the morning some direct morning light would come in here and hit the plants in here. So I'm not surprised that this has pushed out a peduncle. It is higher in humidity, so I think the conditions are just right. So I'm keeping this in this cabinet, but I bumped it down to the bottom. It's still gonna get light from this, and it will still get a little bit of light coming in the morning on the bottom row, just not as much because I put my Anthurium in the middle. That's it. That's the Hoya AH074 growing really well for me, and I recommend it if you just want an easy Hoya to make you feel like you're doing all the right things. But if you're getting it for the splashing, you might be disappointed. It reverts easily, especially if you do not have one with very good genetics. Another one of my favorite Hoya, especially when I first started collecting Hoya, this one I just really wanted to get. It was on my radar and it has done me no wrong. This Hoya performs beautifully, and this one is my Hoya Carnosa Freckles Splash. I see that Home Depot is trying to bring a few of these in stock, but the splash is not very splashy on theirs. This plant is a beautiful one. I bought it from Genus Plants. I got it as a very small cutting. I'll put clips of what it was like, and I got it, I believe, in February of 2024. So I've had it for exactly 1 year. So in 1 year, this is how this plant has grown for me. It's not surprising because this is a Carnosa. Carnosas tend to be quite resilient Hoya. They're pretty fast growing and they're very well behaved. So this one is definitely fits the Carnosa description. I love this plant because, as you can see here, the splashiness. The splash is insane. I'm hoping, or do I have one? I'm hoping to get silver leaves at some point. Silver is when there is so much splashing on the leaf that there is very little green on there. At least that's what I classify as one that's a silver, but it is a beautiful plant. And I know, like I've mentioned, splash relies heavily on genetics. I also believe that splash relies on light. It really relies on lighting. Honestly, I know there are a lot of Hoya content creators who dig and do research and can tell you about genetics and can tell you about the makeup of the plant, where it's from. That is fantastic. I currently don't have the resources in terms of time to dedicate to doing that research. I can tell you what I've seen with growing these plants, like my hands-on experience in my conditions, in my care. And I find that light is a gigantic factor after genetics. You can have great genetics, poor light, and I still think you may struggle so much. Not as much as if it was the other way around. But again, this is a great plant, beautiful splashing. But again, when I reduced the light on my grow lights because I was away for a couple of weeks, you can see that the newest leaves here did not produce a lot of splashing on them. So not a lot of splashy looks on these leaves right here, even if the previous leaf was quite splashy, and you could almost see where perhaps another leaf covered it while it was growing, while it was developing, and so you could see right where the light cut off. That's just my guess, my observation, but I adore this plant. absolutely stunning. I love some of these really, really big leaves, and it grows so well. I wish that it would bloom for me, but I've heard that carnosas can take a little bit of time before they bloom. They need to be really mature. I've heard that about the Carnosa Crimson Queen, etc. So I'm mentally preparing myself for a little bit of a wait when it comes to this plant blooming. But in the meantime, I will not complain because I'm in love with the leaves. The leaves are absolutely stunning. And if you want one of these plants, I would say hold out and try to get one with good genetics because it will not disappoint you. I'm also going to continue to chop back on the leaves to try to encourage the splashiness. For example, the leaves, the pair that I just showed you, I'm probably going to chop it back to the most splashiest leaf. So this pair right here, that's not very splashy. So these two, if I go back down one more, that was before it, that one's also not splashy. This one is just a little bit splashy, but not splashy enough. You could see that it tried, so there could be good genetics at this node, but light prevented it from continuing the splashiness. If I go down one more, I get a little bit more splash here. So I could probably cut it here. That's still risky because the other leaf here is not splashy, the one next to it. So if a new growth point develops from the side, the less splashy side, I run the risk of that growth point being not very splashy, which is fine because I could cut it and then it might push out the growth point, the next growth point to be next to the splashier leaf. So that's basically how you can encourage a plant to continue to produce highly splashy, possibly even silver-like leaves because you keep cutting it back at the splashy parts of it. It's growing here in self-watering. I have it in like my DIY chunky Soilless mix, and it grows on the bottom shelf here of my cabinet, and it enjoys the light from this Barina grow light like I've mentioned. But I always try to keep this plant as close to my grow light as possible. I really want to have splashy leaves on this. All right, we've talked about some splashy plants. Let's get into some not so splashy plants. This is my Hoya Mathilde. Whoa, what direction are you facing? All right, let's hold it like this. This is my Hoya Mathilde. Pleasantly surprised to share this in a video with you because this plant, this pot that I'm holding in front of you today, originated from sort of, how do I put it? The rejects. So I just explained to you how you would encourage splash on a Hoya, on a splashy Hoya that may have lost the splash. So these are actually all cuttings from a splashy Hoya Mathilde. So what I did is I will take every single one of those non-splashy cuttings whenever I get them, and I would stick them in here, and it has created a I guess it does have splash, but not a very splashy Hoya Mathilde. It's just a, just a reverted plant. And I am surprised, pleasantly surprised at how often I find myself staring at this plant. I find myself gawking. Is that the word I want to use? Gaping, admiring. That's the word. Admiring those penny-shaped leaves. Some of the leaves are just perfectly round, coin-like, and some of them are dark and like this one. Look at these here. They're dark and they're not pubescent, but there's something unique about the ones that's here. I think it's probably that they're dark and they're rounder than some of the other leaves. I don't know, but it is quite adorable. I want to say it's fast growing, but I think it wants to be faster. The issue is that I do not water it as often as it probably wants to be watered, and I sort of shimmy it to the side to allow some other plants to enjoy more light. The lighter green are the newer leaves. But I love this more than I thought I would. And I'm not one for duplicates, but I don't know. I mean, I love the icy version of this, but the all green version is pretty. It is really pretty. And I just think a cascading one of this maybe up above, like hanging off of a cabinet or something. I just think that would look so pretty. And I love moments like this when I'm pleasantly surprised. Sometimes we can get so wrapped up in splash and variegation and all the things that's trending and more eye-catching that sometimes the plants that are just simple, I personally, I should speak for myself, sometimes I can overlook the plants that are just more simple and more beautiful. And it's giving me joy to find beauty in something that I had overlooked. But anyways, it's in my DIY chunky mix, the most easy going plant. The splashy one has given me so much trouble. It has completely rotted. I had to chop it up and reroot it. In the meantime, it's given me some silver leaves, which is nice. So it sort of repaid me for my headache. But I think the splashy one, which is weird, same genetics, right? Works better in pon. And this one can tolerate nicely my chunky DIY mix. I just have it in a self-watering pot in one of those clear ones from the prop studio. I like them because I can see through it. I could monitor the roots this way, and yeah, it just lives upstairs in my plant room under my grow light. And it has this huge peduncle that it's never activated. It came on a cutting that Jenna sent me, but it's never activated the peduncle. So I hope that it will do that for me sometime. That will be really nice. It's on today's list of my favorite Hoya for the month. All right, let's go in here for our fourth Hoya. It's probably the thirstiest Hoya in my entire collection. Let's see, can you see it? Yeah. It's my Hoya Nicholsoniae New Guinea Ghost. Where do I begin? So I've had this plant since February last year. I got it in a big Hoya haul I did when I got into Hoya around this time last year. And this is also in my hard Hoya video because it was one of the most difficult Hoya that I had. I found it very difficult to root in the beginning. For some reason, I struggled a lot with it. And looking at it now, it makes me wonder, what exactly did I struggle with? It's growing so well. It's a really fast grower. It's a great grower. I just think it's a hard rooter. I probably need to rewatch that video to find out what the struggle was, which is why I started making YouTube videos, because some struggles, I don't want to forget them. I want to be able to go back and remember what I learned. But anyways, I've had it for a year. It's currently growing in pon. It's one of these Hoya. I think a lot of my thin-leafed Hoya prefer growing in pon rather than a chunky aeroid mix. I don't really know why. Maybe because they're very thirsty, they've got thinner leaves, they're not as succulent as the other Hoya, and so they need to be able to wick up water a lot faster and easier. If I had to guess, I don't know. It could be why. I'm not sure. This plant, I love it a lot because it does that thing that I like, where apart from the way it can look sun-stressed, which I have not been able to achieve yet, this very purple look, like I would be almost there and then it will lose the sun stressing. What I love about this plant is that it grows in clusters. So it will grow a bunch of leaves in a cluster. Even if the leaves fall off, it'll grow a cluster and then push out a vine and then grow another cluster along the vine. And it will keep activating the older clusters. And it will honestly continue to activate just random points along the vine. Can you see right here? I'll try to zoom in, but right here, just random points along the vine, it'll just start pushing out new growth. You know, plants tend to look for nodes, but I don't think that was a node. I just feel like as if it just started pushing out growth just randomly along the vine. And I love that about it. So it easily fills itself out and it easily looks beautiful. It makes you feel like you're such a great plant parent, like you're doing so well. But like I mentioned, this plant is extremely thirsty, probably the thirstiest plant in my entire collection. And this is one of the Hoya that I decided to put into the cabinet before my trip because I wanted to slow down the rate at which it was drying out. And after 8 days, it still wasn't dry. So whew, cabinet life is saving me when it comes to this plant. If you repot it, it will drop the baby leaves. So new leaves fall off very easily. It will in a heartbeat. If you let it dry out for too long, you didn't give it enough light, any change in environment, you repot it, or forget it. But then, like I mentioned, it will reactivate the nodes and grow new leaves from them. So anyways, I've just decided to painfully leave it in here, even if it dries out super fast, because I repotted it and it just blew up, just pushed out a bunch of leaves. Sorry, a bunch of roots, pushed out a bunch of roots and filled this out and did this. So I'm just thinking, you know what, I'm just going to leave it until this entire thing becomes one solid root ball. And for now, I can maintain it because in the cabinet, it stays pretty hydrated. Okay, so let's move on to the last one. The last one that I want to talk about, because you know what, sometimes I try to save plants for when they're perfect. Wait until it looks a little bit better, and then it never looks better, and I wish I captured it when it looked good, a moment of beauty. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to capture it. So for the fifth plant that I want to talk about that I was excited to be staring at for the time I was home for the month of February is this one, and it's a Hoya Joy Splash. I got this plant, I believe, in 2024, and I got it as a one-leafed cutting. This was the one leaf that it came with, and as you can imagine, I was in love. I was searching for this plant for a long time. It was on my wish list, but I was looking for a very splashy cutting. I just didn't want anyone. I wanted to get one that was very splashy. So it took a long time before it started producing new leaves. It started pushing out, it pushed out this one, no splashy ness on the leaves. I think I really overdid it with the lighting. You can see how much smaller this leaf is. I got this one, which is like a half moon to it. Oh, the glossy leaves are stunning. And so it just pushed out this vine. While it had baby leaves on it a few months ago, I repotted it, and that was such a painful lesson. I lost, I think, either 3 or 4 baby leaves after repotting. I didn't even touch the roots. I just took it up and put it in this pot, and it just one by one, I watched all of those leaves that took months to develop just drop, and it broke my heart. And it did not grow anything for a long time, for many months. And then I think eventually it pushed out this leaf, beautiful, glossy. I love the dark look to it, but no splashing. And then it pushed out this leaf here, another leaf here with no splashing. It pushed out this one, again, no splashing. And I thought to cut it. Love the glossy look and the deep green though. I thought about chopping it back to the smallest vine, chopping it all the way back to the main leaf, the first leaf, and I thought, you know what, no, just be patient, just wait. And that's what I did. And right before I left, so at the ending of January or so, or mid-January, I would say, it started working on this leaf. Look at that leaf. Hold on, let me look at it. Yes, look at that leaf. And it did this leaf, I would say it started it upstairs in my plant room, and then I put it in this cabinet, and there we go. It finally has some much more splashing on it. It was being covered by another leaf as it was developing, I think by one of these leaves, and I think that's what caused this here to happen, but that's okay. And since then, from that very same node, from that leaf, it has now pushed out these 2 baby leaves here, 1 and 2, and it's continued to grow. So I am excited, and that already has baby leaves on it. So I'm pretty excited for the future of this plant. It is a huge comeback. It is lovely. It is lovely. I feel like I fought so hard and I tried really hard to be patient to get somewhere, to get these leaves that I have. But anyways, I'm glad that I was patient. A reason I think for the leaf growth is that this is one of these Hoya that prefer to feel their surroundings. They love to feel or fill out their pot, their container, their vessel before they push out new leaves. I notice a lot of Hoya do that. So when you repot them, they will take all the energy from pushing out new growth and put it into the root system to sort of fill out where they are. And when they get a sense of their surroundings. They push through the bottom, push into the reservoir, and that's when they start growing. So finally, it has done that. It just took a very long time. This plant is very slow about doing this process. It did it, and I'm excited. I'm very thrilled and proud of it. And you can't tell as yet if there's any splashing on the newest leaves. Sometimes it gets to a point where you can see the splash markings on it. So I can't tell as yet. Maybe in a couple of days or so, you start to see the appearance of what could be splashing on them. Either that or these have no splash, which would be sad. But anyways, that's my Hoya Joy splash. And that's it for today's video about my current favorite Hoya. Tell me in the comment section which Hoya are performing beautifully for you this month. Let me know. I would love to find out, because when you send me your favorite Hoya and your favorite plants, I actually go look them up to see if I want to add them to my wish list. So please share them with us in the comment section. I'm getting a little sunshine, so I'm happy to leave you on this note, and I will see you next time. Bye.